Hi everyone, it's Bennett Forrest, your fantasy football commissioner, coming to you with the Week 3 weekly recap of the 2014 ForrestLand MishMash fantasy football season. You'll have to pardon me if I'm a little somber this week. Not only did my Braves finally get eliminated from the playoffs, which is probably a good thing to be put out of their misery, as they haven't scored more than one run in the past 6 weeks, but also because my fantasy football team is 0-3. For the first time in, I don't even remember ever being 0-3, at least since my first year ever playing back in like the 90s. But onward I go as the Fantasy Football Commish. I do have a responsibility to do the weekly recap regardless of how the Slim Aussies do. So I'm going to push forward, and we're going to get right into the recap with the Calvinators and the Chiomes tying for the league in points for the week and tying with each other and getting the big tie on the record, which of course is good news and bad news. But it's definitely a bummer when you score the highest points in the league and you don't get the win. Definitely, it's got to be disappointing. And you got to give the bench stud of the week. This is the first time I'm ever going to give a bench stud of the week to a player with only 3 points. But as you can see, Doug Martin did not play, and I know that he was ruled out before the game because I had Bobby Rainey, his replacement, in. Not that he did anything special, but the big 0 from Doug Martin obviously would have made the difference had he had anyone in there. But as you can see, injuries galore for the Calvinators with Arian Foster. He was out before the game. D'Angelo Williams, I think, was out before the game. Noshawn Marino was out before the game. So really the only option was either picking someone off the waiver wire or getting 3 points from James Starks, which in this case would have been the difference. So he sort of somewhat wasted the effort of Andrew Luck, had a great game. Fred Jackson, obviously, and Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's the only one that did anything fantasy-wise for Denver against Seattle. So, all of that is the highest point total in the league, but yet the 0 from Doug Martin definitely hurts. On the other side, we had just a nice consistent day from Chiomes. The big scorer was, as you can see, Pierre Garçon. Only 13 points each from the quarterbacks. I'm not sure what to make of Cam Newton this year. I don't know what to say. He's not getting it done so far, even though he's only played 2 games. And just a consistent game with no one scoring less than 10 points other than the kicker. So great game for them. Again, leads to a 175-175 tie. Another close game, which sort of came down to Monday night, where you had Third and Oolong defeating the Cartel 134-123. Needed a little bit more, obviously, from Matt Forte and Alshon Jeffrey in the Sunday night game. 33 points, not bad. Needed 44 for the tie, 45 for the win. So, obviously, a little bit better on Monday night. Forte gets 80 yards, 90 yards, maybe a touchdown. Who knows if it's different. But they take the loss, fall to 1-2. Third and Oolong gets their first win of the year, with even in spite of the quarterbacks not doing much. DeMarco Murray's been great so far. If you look at his stats, he's got 300-yard games, a touchdown in each game. So pretty much what you want from DeMarco Murray. Frank Gore with only 1 point. But 31 points from Antonio Brown, and all of it adds up to a 134-123 win for Third and Oolong. A lot of points on the bench for the Cartel, as you can see. Other games, we had the Travelers reaching a first-place tie with the Stallions, as the Stallions fall to 2-1, and the Travelers are in a first-place tie in the Mish division at 2-1 with a 150-129 win. Nice, overall steady point total from the Travelers. You'll take 30 points from Jeremy Maclin any day. Nothing too spectacular all around, but enough consistency to get 150. Somerset Stallions got to be real disappointed in Antonio Gates. He's got 13 catches in the first 2 games, including 3 touchdowns in Game 2. And always fun when you have a fantasy player on a team that wins handily and your guy only gets 1 catch for 8 yards. So that's a big bummer there. Probably needed a little bit more from Monte Ball or someone else as well. So I don't think it was just Gates that cost him the win. And then, of course, you can see Victor Cruz finally had a good game for the Giants. Obviously could have had him in versus some of the other players, but to that point, Victor Cruz hadn't been doing much, so can't really fault the Stallions too much there. Nevertheless, the Travelers go to 2-1, and the Stallions fall to 2-1. 2 more games to talk about. We have Ray Finkel's Kicking Academy, definitely benefiting from playing a team with one of the lowest point totals of the week, with only 122 points, but yet they go to 3-0. Just nothing there from the bottom half. I mean, Brandon Marshall, I think, got hurt or wasn't 100% the whole game on Monday night. Alfred Morris had done pretty good up until this point. I think he had two touchdowns in the last game. So without those touchdowns, the 77 yards doesn't really add up that much. Meanwhile, but yet enough to get the win. Meanwhile, Be More BPE gets a big disappointing goose egg from Stafford. Again, team wins 19-7, has a decent game, but had 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions and a fumble and no touchdowns. So you'd like to see more from Stafford there. And Calvin Johnson. And I said this week 1 that Be More BP is going to live and die by Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford. This particular week, they sort of died from it because obviously they didn't get the win. And so that's that game. Again, Ray Finkel goes to 3-0. Be More BP goes to 1-2. And finally, the disappointing Slim Aussies, 0-3. Graceland with a nice 148 points. Wins in spite of LaShawn McCoy. Again, team gets 37 points, and the stud running back on fantasy only gets 2 points. Luckily, it didn't hurt because Nick Foles obviously had a good game. So, just one of those things. You'd think LaShawn McCoy would have a lot more points. But Graceland gets 148 points. Real Slim Aussies just having a lot of trouble scoring points this year. Joik Bell only getting 3. Obviously, Adrian Peterson not playing due to this freaking arrest of all things. Who expects that to happen when you draft Adrian Peterson? And then Eddie Lacy really being the big disappointment. I mean, Rookie of the Year last year, everyone thought he'd be doing well. He's got at least 2 fumbles, maybe 3. He has a concussion. Hasn't even cracked 50 yards yet. So he's got to be the disappointment for the Slim Aussies. Kelvin Benjamin had a good week 1, didn't have a good week 2. So one of those things where you got to put the right people in. So I'm going to have to give Kelvin Benjamin the Bench Stud of the Week runner-up award. But just not enough either way for the Slim Aussies. And again, they fall to 0-3. Graceland avoids falling 0-3 by going to 1-2. Let's quickly check the standings. And you'll see that, as we mentioned, the Stallions and the Travelers tied for the league lead in the Mish division with Ray Finkel, Kicking Academy, and Chioms remaining undefeated in the MASH division. And also, it's always good to just, if you want to justify or rationalize why your team's doing crappy, you can always look at the point total. And if you look at the Mish division, you pretty much have the standings in order of who scored the most points. A little bit of a flip-flop at the bottom. But, so no one can really complain that they're just running into tough luck in the Mish division. And same with the MASH division. As you can see, the points go steadily down in order of the... am I reading that right? Yeah. In order of the standings. You have Chioms and Ray Finkel pretty much tied for the lead. And then you have the Calvinators and Third and New Long and Be More BPE. So right now, nobody's really getting screwed with lots of points. They're just, it's pretty much falling in line with how many points you're getting. So that's it for the weekly recap. Don't forget about your dues. It can't be any easier this year. I know some of you have reached out to me about having trouble with tilt. I'll reach out to you separately, but all you have to do, as you know, is go to the front page, assuming it loads up for me. Please load. I'm going to tap dance and say that, don't forget to get your lineups in Thursday. And again, don't forget to go to Tilt. All you have to do is click on the button, sign in, log in. It's like $1.50 for a service charge, and you'll have your 25 bucks in, and you'll be done with it. So thanks for listening again, as always, and good luck to everyone this week. Talk to you next week.